I didn't just kill her. I carved her death with my own tongue, spoke words so ancient, so absolute, that even the moon goddess herself couldn't interfere. And now my wolf is clawing through my rib cage every single night, screaming for the woman I condemn to the void. You think you know what a curse is. Maybe you picture some hag in the woods, chanting over bones and candles. That's folklore. That's children's stories. The real curses? They're spoken by men who've lived too long. Men who've forgotten that power without restraint is just violence in a crown. My name is Silas Thornbound, Alpha King of the Midnight Pack, 312 years old. I've crushed rebellions, executed traitors, and watched entire bloodlines kneel at my feet. I thought I was untouchable. I was wrong. Because the girl I destroyed in 30 seconds of rage, she wasn't just some nobody waitress with coffee-stained aprons and tired eyes. She was my soul, my anchor, the one thing in this cursed immortal existence that could have made me human again. And I sentenced her to die. Let me take you back to where it all went wrong. 3 weeks before the autumn purge. That's when the strongest wolves hunt the weakest. Survival of the fittest, written in blood and bone. The council had been breathing down my neck about choosing a Luna, someone royal, someone pure-blooded, someone worthy of standing beside the Alpha King. I was suffocating under the weight of their expectations. So I did what I always do when the palace feels like a tomb. I drove. No guards, no entourage, just me, a stolen sedan, and 200 miles of empty highway between me and responsibility. I ended up at this place called Mama's Roadside Diner, the kind of place that smells like burnt coffee, old grease, and the quiet desperation of people who work 3 jobs just to survive. Flickering neon sign, cracked leather booths, linoleum floors so worn down you could see the outline of decades' worth of footsteps. I sat in the back corner booth, hood up, sunglasses on. Nobody knew who I was, and that's exactly how I wanted it. That's when I saw her. Raylin. She moved like someone who'd been invisible her whole life. Tired eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun with strands falling loose around her face, chipped black nail polish, a name tag that was barely holding on by a single safety pin. She was what we call a woodman, an outcast, born to a pack that didn't want her, raised on the fringes of wolf society, working human jobs just to survive because no pack would take her in. To me, in that moment, she was nothing. Just another faceless server in a forgettable diner on a forgettable stretch of highway. She came to my table with that rehearsed smile service workers wear like armor. "What can I get you?" Her voice was soft, worn down, like she'd apologized for existing so many times that it had become her default setting. I didn't even look up, just ordered black coffee and told her to make it fast. She nodded, turned to leave. And then it happened. Her foot caught on the uneven floor, the coffee pot tipped, $3 worth of burnt diner coffee splashed across my $1,500 hand-tailored suit. I didn't yell, that's not my style. Rage, real rage, doesn't need volume. It just needs focus. I felt this coldness spread through my chest, this arrogance that had been fed and nurtured over 3 centuries of absolute power. Who was this nobody to ruin my property, to interrupt my peace? I stood up, slowly. She started stammering immediately. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll pay for the cleaning. I grabbed her wrist. The second my skin touched hers, I felt it, this electric shock that ran straight up my arm and exploded in my chest. My wolf stirred. For the first time in decades, it actually moved inside me, like it recognized something. But I was too angry to listen. I leaned in close enough that she could feel my breath on her face, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. eyes that were wide with fear and confusion. And I spoke, not in English, not in any modern tongue. I spoke in the ancient language, the language of binding, the language that even the moon goddess must honor because it predates her claim on our kind. Amititia de sanguis, corpus tuum deficit, vita tua in terram defluat, sicut aqua quae non revertitur. In common tongue, it means, by the bond of blood and body, your life shall drain into the earth like water that does not return.
The mark appeared instantly. A sigil burned itself onto her neck, purple flames that didn't consume but branded, the ancient rune for severance, for ending. She gasped. Her free hand flew to her throat. Her eyes went wide, not with anger, but with confusion. She didn't even understand what I'd done to her. I let go of her wrist. She stumbled backward, crashed into a table, knocked over a salt shaker that shattered on the ground. Everyone in the diner was staring now, but they didn't see what I saw. They didn't see the curse taking root. They just saw a clumsy waitress who'd pissed off the wrong customer. I dropped $200 bills on the table, and I walked out. I thought I was teaching a lesson. I thought I was putting an inferior wolf in her place. I didn't realize I had just murdered the only person in the world who could have saved me from myself.
10 miles down the highway, my lungs stopped working. Not slowly, not gradually. 1 second I was breathing fine. The next, it felt like someone had filled my chest cavity with concrete. I swerved, nearly crashed into the guardrail. My vision blurred. My hands started shaking so violently I could barely grip the steering wheel. And then my wolf started screaming. Not howling, screaming. It wasn't the battle cry I'd heard 1,000 times before. It wasn't rage or bloodlust or dominance. It was mourning. Pure, soul-shattering grief. My bones started to crack in the middle of a highway at 70 miles per hour. The transformation was violent, involuntary. My spine bent backward. Fur erupted through my skin like needles. My jaw extended, teeth shattered and reformed. Claws tore through the leather steering wheel. I barely managed to pull over before the shift completed. I stumbled out of the car on 4 legs. My wolf had taken full control, something that hadn't happened since I was a juvenile. 300 years of iron discipline, shattered in seconds. And then the scent hit me. It came on the wind, faint but unmistakable. Mountain lilies and winter rain, clean snow on pine branches, the smell of home. A home I'd never actually had, but that my soul recognized anyway. The scent of a true Luna. You need to understand what that means. In 312 years, I'd been with hundreds of she-wolves. Elegant, powerful, royal-blooded. I'd searched across continents. I'd consulted oracles and shamans and ancient texts. I'd never found her. The true Luna isn't just a mate. She's the other half of an alpha's soul, the only person who can calm the beast, the only one who can anchor an alpha's power and keep it from consuming everything in its path. Without her, an alpha is just a monster with a crown. I'd spent centuries looking for mine, and I'd just left her dying on a diner floor. The realization hit me harder than the transformation. My paws were already moving before my human brain caught up. I ran, not as a man in a car, but as a wolf, a 300-year-old alpha wolf whose beast had finally found its other half and would destroy anything that stood between them. I covered 10 miles in minutes. Cars swerved, people screamed. I didn't care. But with every step, I could feel it, the curse working. The ancient tongue doesn't care about mistakes. It doesn't accept apologies. A king's word is law. Absolute, irreversible, eternal. I had spoken her death into existence, and the universe was honoring my command. I burst through the diner doors hard enough to rip them off the hinges. She was on the floor. Raylene, my true Luna, my soul. She was surrounded by paramedics who had no idea what they were dealing with. They had oxygen masks, defibrillators, IV lines, all useless against ancient magic. Her skin had gone gray, not pale, gray, like stone that was slowly turning to dust. The mark on her neck was glowing, pulsing, each pulse dimmer than the last. Her eyes were open but unfocused. She was looking at something the rest of us couldn't see. The void. The space between life and death where cursed souls go when their time is stolen rather than given. I shifted back to human form, naked, covered in dirt and blood. I didn't care. I shoved the paramedics aside and dropped to my knees beside her. Raylene. My voice came out broken, raw. Raylene, look at me. Her eyes moved, slowly, like it took all her remaining strength just to focus on my face. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? I was just the cruel man who'd cursed her for spilling coffee. I tried everything. I placed my hand over the mark and spoke the counter-curses, the words of unbinding, the phrases of mercy. I called on the moon goddess. I called on the old gods. I offered tribute, sacrifice, my own blood. Nothing worked. The ancient tongue is absolute. When a king speaks a curse, the universe doesn't ask if he meant it. It just obeys. And then I heard her voice. Not Raylene's voice, the moon goddess herself. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It vibrated in my bones. You have two paths before you, Silas Thornbound. The diner fell silent. Even the paramedics seemed frozen, like time itself had stopped. You may let her die as you have commanded. You will remain Alpha King. You will live another 300 years in power and glory. But you will be hollow, empty, a beast without an anchor. Eventually, you will lose yourself completely, and your pack will have to put you down like the rabid animal you'll become. Or, the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. You may trade what she needs most for what you value least. I knew immediately what she meant. Life for power, mortality for magic, the man for the king. 312 years. That's how long I'd been Alpha King. I'd built an empire. I'd united packs that had been at war for generations. I'd created laws that protected the weak and punished the corrupt. I'd given my entire existence to my people. My wolf was legendary. Alphas from across the world came to challenge me and left in body bags. My power had shaped the modern wolf world, and the goddess was asking me to give it all up. For a waitress I'd known for 30 seconds. For a girl who didn't even know my name. But here's the thing about true Lunas. They're not chosen because they're perfect. They're chosen because they're necessary. I looked down at Raylene. Her lips were turning blue. Her chest was barely moving. And I realized something. For 300 years, I'd been asking the wrong question. I'd been asking, who is worthy of standing beside me? When I should have been asking, who am I worthy of protecting? I placed both hands over her heart, and I spoke. Not in the ancient tongue this time, in the language of truth, the language that even kings can't lie in. Moon Goddess, I, Silas Thornbound, Alpha King of the Midnight Pack, offer my wolf in exchange for her life. Take my immortality, take my power, take everything that makes me king. Just let her live. The pain was immediate.
Imagine having a part of yourself ripped out. Not a limb, not an organ, your essence. I felt my wolf being torn from my soul. 300 years of power, memory, and identity gone in a single heartbeat. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. My whole life there'd been this presence in my mind, this fierce, protective, powerful beast that had been my companion, my weapon, my strength. Now there was just nothing. Empty space where my wolf used to be.
The mark on Raylin's neck began to fade. Color returned to her skin. Her breathing deepened. Her eyes focused. She sat up slowly, gasping, like someone who'd been drowning and finally broke the surface. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the exact moment she felt it too. The bond. Not the royal bond between an alpha and his Luna. That required a wolf on both sides. This was something different, something human, something fragile. A soul bond. The kind that doesn't come with magic or power or certainty. The kind you have to choose every single day. That was 8 months ago. You want to know where I am now? I'm standing behind the counter at Mama's roadside diner, wearing the same grease-stained apron Raylin wore that day, serving coffee to truckers who don't know they're being waited on by a former king. I work the double shift, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. Why? Because Raylin survived the curse, but she didn't escape it unscathed. The ancient tongue leaves scars, invisible ones mostly. Her lungs were damaged. Her heart was weakened. She needs medication, treatments, things that cost money. Money that a waitress doesn't have. But a former alpha king willing to do anything to earn his mate's forgiveness? He figures it out. Every morning, I wake up at 4 a.m. I don't wake to the call of the moon anymore. I don't feel the pack bonds tugging at my consciousness. I don't have the supernatural strength that made everything easy. I wake up because an alarm clock screams at me. I make coffee in a pot that's older than most of the wolves I used to rule. I walk 3 blocks to the diner because I can't afford a car anymore. And I tie on an apron that still has Raylin's name embroidered on the pocket because Mama, the 70-year-old human woman who owns this place, said I hadn't earned my own name tag yet. Raylin and I live in a studio apartment above the diner. 1 room, shared bathroom down the hall, a hot plate for cooking, a mattress on the floor. It's a far cry from the palace I used to call home. But here's what nobody tells you about losing everything. Sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find out what actually matters. Raylin didn't forgive me right away. How could she? I cursed her. I nearly killed her. I stole weeks of her life while she recovered from magical trauma that no human doctor could understand. The bond between us was undeniable, but bonds don't erase choices. So I had to earn it. Every single day. I learned her coffee order. Extra cream, 2 sugars, vanilla if we could afford it. I learned that she hums when she's nervous. Old country songs her mother used to sing before her pack abandoned them both. I learned that she cries silently because she'd spent so long being invisible that she'd forgotten she was allowed to take up space with her pain. I learned that her favorite color is the specific shade of purple the sky turns right before sunrise. I learned her. Not as a king observing a subject, but as a man falling in love with a woman who had every reason to hate him. 3 months in, we had our first real fight. She'd found out I'd been skipping meals to save money for her medication. She cornered me in our tiny apartment, eyes blazing with an anger I'd never seen from her before. "You don't get to martyr yourself," she shouted. "You don't get to destroy yourself to fix what you broke. That's not love, Silas. That's just guilt with better marketing." And she was right. I'd been so focused on earning her forgiveness that I'd forgotten to actually live with her. I'd been treating our relationship like a debt to be paid instead of a life to be built. That night, we sat on the floor of our apartment. I told her everything. Not the legend of the Alpha King, not the sanitized version of my reign. I told her about the loneliness, the weight of living for 3 centuries and watching everyone you care about age and die. The way power becomes a prison when you have no one to share it with. I told her about the she-wolves the council had paraded in front of me, beautiful, powerful, perfect on paper, and how I'd felt nothing until a tired waitress in a forgotten diner showed me what it felt like to actually need someone. Raylan was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. "I was going to quit that night," she said softly. "I'd already written my 2 weeks' notice. I was going to leave town, maybe find a pack that would take me in, or just disappear into the human world completely." She looked at me with those brown eyes that had haunted me since the moment I'd cursed her. "You didn't just almost kill me, Silas. You also saved me, in the worst, most painful way possible. Because if you hadn't cursed me, I would have left, and I would have spent the rest of my life wondering why I always felt like something was missing."
The bond between us? It's not magic anymore. It's choice. Every morning I wake up and I choose you. Not because the moon goddess says we're mates, but because you wake up at 4 a.m. to make coffee you don't even drink just so it's ready when I need it. Because you work yourself to exhaustion to pay for medications you don't understand. Because you're trying. She took my hand. And that's more than magic ever gave me. Now, we're building something. It's not a kingdom, it's not an empire. It's small, quiet, human. We save our tips in a jar on the kitchen counter. We talk about maybe getting a dog. We argue about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. We fall asleep watching old movies on a laptop with a cracked screen. Some nights, I wake up and the absence of my wolf hits me like a physical blow. I mourn what I lost, the power, the longevity, the certainty. But then Raylin shifts in her sleep, and her hand finds mine, and I remember what I gained. The council sent an envoy eventually. They wanted to know if the Alpha King would be returning. I told them the Alpha King was dead. But Silas Thornbound was willing to serve as an advisor, nothing more. They didn't understand. How could they? They'd spent centuries building their identities around power. They'd never learned that the strongest thing you can do is choose someone else over yourself. Last week, something happened. Raylin and I were closing the diner. It was late, dark. The kind of quiet you only get at 2 a.m. on empty highways. A group of rogue wolves came in. I smelled them immediately. Even without my wolf, some instincts remain. They recognized me, or at least they recognized the legend. "So it's true," their leader said. "The great Silas Thornbound slinging hash in a roadside diner." He looked at Raylin, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. Is this the one, the waitress who brought down a king? I stepped between them. No fangs, no claws, no supernatural strength. Just a man protecting his mate. "If you touch her," I said quietly, "I will spend every remaining day of my mortal life hunting you down. And without my wolf to hold me back, without laws or councils or mercy to restrain me, I promise you, the human in me is far more dangerous than the Alpha ever was." They believed me, because some truths don't need magic to be terrifying. They left. Raylene grabbed my hand, and I felt it shake. "You would have died for me," she whispered. "No," I corrected her. "I would have killed for you. There's a difference." She kissed me then. Right there in the empty diner, surrounded by the smell of old coffee and pie.
And I realized something. I'd spent 300 years thinking I was searching for my Luna, but I'd had it backward. My wolf wasn't searching for a Luna. My soul was searching for a reason to be human again. Because being a king is easy when you're immortal. You can always wait out problems, outlive your enemies, rule through sheer endurance. But being a man, being human, that requires courage I'd never needed before. It requires waking up every day knowing you might fail, knowing you're fragile, knowing that the person you love could be taken from you, and you don't have the power to stop it. It requires faith, not in magic or prophecies or ancient bonds, but in the small, quiet promise that choosing each other every single day is enough. So yes, I cursed my true Luna in the ancient tongue. I bound her to death with words that couldn't be taken back. And in doing so, I condemned myself to the one thing I'd spent 3 centuries avoiding: humanity. They say a king's word is law, that when an alpha speaks, the universe has no choice but to obey. But here's what they don't tell you. The most powerful words aren't the ones spoken in ancient languages. They're not curses or commands or declarations of dominance. The most powerful words are the ones you whisper in the dark to someone who has every reason not to trust you. I'm sorry. I choose you. I'll do better. Because those words, they can't be commanded. They can only be earned. My name is Silas Thornbound. I was an Alpha King. Now, I'm just a man who makes coffee for the woman who saved him from himself. And if you can't hear the heartbeat of your mate through the noise of your own power, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet.